Hello, everyone, and welcome to Aaron's Reading Room. If you're joining us live or if you're catching us on the replay, thank you so much for being here. I just have to pause the live on here to make sure I'm going. But today I have joining me author Dani Collins. Dani, thank you so much for being here with me today. How have you been lately?
Oh, really good. And I'm so thrilled to be here. This is really exciting. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. So I always start off my interviews asking my guests to show off some covers that they're in love with. So did you bring any covers to share with us today?
Well, that was a tough one for me because I live very rural. So I don't have a big bookstore where I go and browse and just love
Okay.
stuff and buy it like that. So I will buy online. I often buy I buy a lot of Twitter stuff, if
Mhm.
anything, if it appeals to me cover wise or story or whatever. So I'll just go that way. So I'm going to be really self-involved and just go
Okay.
ahead and
Yeah.
promote a couple of mine
Yeah,
that I really like.
absolutely.
So this one was one that I always loved. It was the first one in my baby swap, and it's just so golden and beautiful. So I've
Hmm.
always loved that one. I love any of the collections where I'm with my friends, my writing friends, especially people who I admire from the
Yeah.
presents. So I put it under my computer so that it would hold it up. So thank you, Macy Yates and
Oh, yeah.
Caitlin Cruz,
Uh-huh.
and for helping me here. They're just hanging out there. This one,
Oh,
Snowbound.
yeah.
That one, I mean, it's super sexy, right? Super cute. And this one is my current book that's
Mhm.
out right now, and I just love how they positioned the people on here. It's just so
Yeah.
cute, really
Yeah.
sexy. So yeah.
Yeah. Harlequin does really well with your covers. They just knock it out of the park, I swear.
Oh, all the covers, to be honest, they're just amazing. I'm really pleased with them. Yeah.
Yeah, we actually got to
Oh,
talk on the oh, so we can still hear you.
okay. Yeah. Siri was trying to get in here.
Oh.
I'm all good now.
Yeah, we got a chance to talk with Tony, who runs the art department for the Categorically Romance
Fun.
podcast, and that was a really fun recording to do. And I also want to say hi to Alicia, my good friend, joining us. All right, so can you share with us how you came to become a romance reader and then eventually a writer?
Um, oh gosh. Okay, so I will always say that my very first romance was Anne of Green Gables. I loved that she got
Uh-huh.
together with Gilbert. Okay, and then I started finding them in high school, like in grade 8. I started finding romances, and one of them that I realized that's where I realized I like these books was called The Roots of Love, and I don't know the author, and it was just about a woman who went to Scotland and found some vaguely connected relative and fell in love with him. And I was like, these books that end happily, that's what I love. And then I discovered that we could get the ones from the local used bookstore, and it would be
Hmm.
like 8 for $1, and I would just eat them up. And of course, that's how I fell in love with
Oh yeah.
presents.
Oh yeah.
And then, so even when I was in high school, I knew this is the job I want. I want to do this. How do you do this? And
Hmm.
I had seen that you could write for tip sheets right away to get them. And
Uh-huh.
I never did that. I wound up taking a course from someone named Moira Tarling. She wrote for Presents years ago.
Okay.
And yeah, that was the first time that I heard about RWA and got all involved with that. And then I did that for 25 years, just writing and trying and trying and trying. And then finally got a publishing contract in 2012 and away to the races.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I know aspiring authors probably deal with a lot of frustration, and it's good to know that you stuck with it. We're very glad here that you stuck with it
Oh,
because
thank you.
you put out some very, very good books. And then hello to Emily joining
Hi,
us
Emily.
as
Oh, Emily,
well.
hi.
And as well, Vina. Thanks for joining us,
Hi.
Vina. All right. So can can we actually go back to in those 25 years, what was the most frustrating point that you found yourself in?
Oh, all of it. It was really rough. I go on it and see that there was parts of it that were just industry related. That the industry
Mhm.
itself was just shrinking and changing and evolving at different times. Going digital. All of that affected
Mhm.
what I was doing. I also can see the sorts of mistakes that I made. Some of them were I just didn't stick with one thing. I was constantly chasing whatever was new and shiny, because during
Oh,
that time there was, yeah, there was a lot of different markets came available too,
mhm.
right? So I was just always doing something different, and have since learned that no, the key is, if you really want to do this, pick one and then really dig your teeth into it, really try, stick with it, because even the publishers, they don't want to see that you tried here and then 5 years later, well, I mean, they don't hate you for it, but that's going to happen for somebody.
Uh-huh.
I don't want to discourage you if that's how your life goes, but they, someone like Harlequin that have all these lines, they can see that you're not really committing to something, and they need to know that they can grow you within one line. So
Okay.
yeah, so I would say, if you're an aspiring author, pick one that you think you could write 20 books just like that, because that's how you're going to build your career with them. So
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So let's talk about who are some of the Harlequin Presents authors that you look up to or inspired you to chase that line.
originally, like way back when I was reading them when I was 12, um, Robin Donald was huge. I loved her. um, I'm trying to think of the presents ones, because, oh, well, Lynn Graham, of course.
Oh, of
Um,
course.
yeah. And that was another book actually I almost pulled, because my name's on the cover with Lynn Graham.
Oh, you got
I
one of those bind ups or the
Yeah,
dual books. Oh, that's great.
yeah, and it's like, um, yeah, and then more recently, I mean, Jane Porter, of course, and was just a huge, I couldn't believe it. And yeah, and Megan Crane, Caitlin Cruz. I adore her writing. I can't read it too much, because then I just feel like such a hack. She's just so great. So
She is really good. Yeah.
mhm.
We got a chance to talk to her recently on the podcast too, and that was a real treat.
Oh, I bet.
All right. So you wrote the very first Harlequin Presents that I read, which was Married for One Reason Only, and that was part one of the Secret Sisters duology. I was just getting into reading Harlequin at this time, and it was like a random pick because the cover was great. It was so dramatic. You got the pose and everything, and the pregnant woman and stuff. So, but I'm super glad that I picked it up because it was just such a fun adventure. Both of those books. So, all right, on to the question now. How did you find yourself writing for Presents? What's the story of finally getting that acceptance call?
Well, a big part of it, like I was talking about, was that I just finally just sunk my teeth in one day. I was like, that's it. I'm not going to write anything else. I'm just going to really go for this. And I actually did place with something called I think they called it the Instant Seduction Contest at that time.
Okay.
And I was not the winner. I was like third. But it allowed me to finally work with an editor. And so I worked on a couple of books, and I was getting rejection still, but I could tell that, with feedback, that I was getting better. I knew that I
Uh-huh.
was getting close. And then this is a terrible story, but I'm going to tell it anyway, um, because I just want people to know that
Uh-huh.
it's okay to make mistakes. So my editor was pregnant, and so she sent me a note. She said, "Look, you're really close with this particular manuscript. I'm going to give you to a different editor because I'm leaving to have a baby.
Mhm.
What do you want to do? Do you want to revise this one more time, or do you want to try something new since you're going to this new editor?" And I said, "I'm going to go with a new book," and I just put that one aside. And I call that one the book that I rejected myself, because
Okay.
she didn't reject it. I did. Um, I did wind up some years later so the next book I did sell, and it was all wonderful. I got a 2-book contract, and it's been
Uh-huh.
away to the races. So that's all good. But I went back to that book like 5 or 6 books in, and
Mhm.
sent it in. And the editor, a different editor again by this time, and she said, like, "Where has this been? This was great." And I was like, I could have sold it.
But it did eventually sell. I
It did.
assume. Yeah. And what was the
Yeah.
name of that one, or what did that name end up
You know
being?
what? I honestly have to look at. I meant to look it up before I told that story on here. I think it was the Russians' acquisition. I could be
Okay.
wrong. Yeah,
Okay.
I will look, and I'll put it in your comments, because I can't remember what it was. But
All right. Well, yeah. Thank you. That's funny. I hear Harlequin authors, just speak like that all the time of like, oh yeah, this one book. I can't remember the name or the characters, but it was a long time ago. But these books do come out at such a pace, that's nothing we can blame you for, because us as the readers sometimes get lost as well in those. Well, so back to the Secret Sisters duology. How did the idea for this story come, and what was it like writing two books in a parallel timeline?
Um, I'm going to answer the second part first. I do that a lot, and I kill myself every time. I'm like, I'm never doing this again. Never, never, never. And when we get to talking about my current, whatever you call it, quartet, all set in Canada, it's the same thing. I'm doing the same thing. And I'm like, 4 books this way? I'm going to kill myself. Why am I doing this? But I guess I like to read it, so that's why I do it. And it's
Yeah.
hard. It's hard also because the books are coming out at different times, so I'm revising the first one to try and keep the continuity going, and it's very challenging. But I keep saying I'm going to stop, and I don't stop. So I guess that's just something I like to do. The idea, every once in a while, Harlequin comes to me and says, would you like to do a duet? And so, like there's been a couple of times. One time I did one on earrings. I just look for something that is what is a good for 2 books, right? And so in this case, I was like, what if there's twins? What if they were separated at birth? And so that was the part, the first part. But then, I guess I was kind of thinking about, the sort of 23andMe thing and how that can really blow people out of the water sometimes. They're like, what? How am I Greek or whatever, right? So that's kind of where I went down this rabbit hole of, well, what if it was this Bollywood princess or diva who had these kids, and what if they were taken away and she didn't even okay that, and so then it turned into quite a dramatic story.
Oh, very dramatic, and just they're so good. I go
You.
back to and just reread sections of Manhattan's Most Scandalous Reunion quite often. It's that one was just really, really good.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I almost want to interview you and ask you why did you decide to go down the category journey?
Well, I was getting into, I had been into romance for a while and had kind of avoided Harlequin, category romance. Like I would go to the section, I'd be on my way to the bookstore and be like, you know what, I'm going to go and I'm just going to pick up a Harlequin. But I'd end up in my used bookstore in the section and I just get lost right away. It's like, okay, some of them are blue, some of them are red, and it would just become overwhelming and I'd just walk away. and so I started following the Categorically Romance podcast, which strangely enough, I found myself a co-host of now. and I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to do it. And I'm going to document, everything as I go along and just try this whole new thing to put on my YouTube channel. And it worked out, I guess.
Yeah, that's fun. I can't believe that I was the first one. That's really funny. Well, the
first presents.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I think I had read my first Harlequin was actually an intrigue that was that we read as part of my good friend Nicole's book club, and I hadn't even realized it was a Harlequin until probably a year later, and it's like, I have read a Harlequin. All right, well, going back to the Secret Sisters again, or actually, I missed a question here. Let's see. So, sorry, I missed up my questions here. Oh yeah, I was just talking about this question here. I had or just more of a statement on Manhattan's Most Scandalous Reunion. I just love that book.
Thank you.
Well, but Married for One Reason Only, what was the biggest challenge of, the biggest challenge of writing a surprise baby romance?
Well, when you're coming up to 50 books, it's how do you keep that fresh? How do you make that different from the other? Because I've probably done a dozen, easy, maybe 20. I've done a lot of secret babies. I love the babies. I love the grumpy hero who now gets this infant and it just instantly floors him. I love that. So, goodness, what the challenge? Yeah, I think the challenge is just making it fresh and fun.
Yeah. Do you find yourself as, in the present setting, more difficult to have that baby be a surprise?
Yes, actually. Okay. I'm actually writing one. And yeah, and I was like, oh, initially I was going to have them just take a chance. And then I'm like, oh, no, I have to be a
Uh,
little bit, I think I'm going to have to break the condom. And that, honestly, Harlequin has the worst condoms. I don't
they
know.
they do.
Fortunately, they're in like a summer house and they're using old condoms. So there we go. It's they just didn't check the
Yes.
expiry date.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Well, in Manhattan's Most Scandalous Reunion, that is a second chance trope in there. What do you feel is the most important part or most challenging part of the second chance romance?
Um, well, because I'm a romance author, I like to believe that, once you find the one, you stick with
Uh-huh.
it. And so it's always tough to have that. Well, why did they not sort this out back when they had the chance? So I would say that's always where my stumbling block.
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to remember with that one. He was very closed off, and it was an affair anyway. And
Hmm.
yeah, and I kind of actually I really like that book because I just like that she got all fired up at him and just friggin' left, and he was like, "Wait, what? You weren't supposed to
Yes.
do that."
Yes, that is, and just, I don't want to call him dense, but he was kind of dense about the whole situation. She had left all of her fashion design material and everything there, and he was just like, I wonder why she did that.
Has she left me?
Yeah.
I love that too. I love heroes who are just too dumb to know they're in love. So I like
Yes.
I like to do that a lot.
Yes, it's a great one. And like I said, I go back to it all the time.
Uh,
Well, so continuing on the tropes in Snowbound, or one Snowbound New Year's Night, that's a romance between a married couple that's been estranged for about 4 years, I think it was. So, what made you structure their love story in that way, and what brought on the inspiration for that?
the inspiration was my editor said, "Would you like to put a couple of people snowbound in Canada on one night?" And I went, "Can it be New Year's Eve?" And they said, "You bet." So that was that. I can't remember why I chose 4 years. Um, yeah, honestly, I can't remember all of the reasons why I chose that, but I knew I knew that she would have fertility problems and that was the reason she was leaving or had left the
Uh-huh.
marriage. And I just liked that he like I think professional athletes must really struggle with a relationship because they're
Oh yeah.
married to whatever they're doing, right? So
Hmm.
so that kind of all worked for me. And then he's hot and dynamic and he's used to winning and he lost and it sucks for him. So I
Uh-huh.
like that.
Yeah. Yes, and the forced proximity is just fabulous.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So how was it, getting to write? I guess it's up to you anyway where you set the stories, but you set these in Canada, which is where you live. So has that been fun or more of a challenge to write in your area? I imagine it would be more easy,
Yeah.
but
Um, I don't, yeah, nothing is easy, right? Writing is hard. Um, I, I have kind of made a conscious effort to write more in Canada. Um, for a long time, it just didn't feel romantic or sexy or exotic because I grew up on all of the Greek and even,
yes.
yeah. So even Australia seemed way more interesting to me, even though I would say that we have, similarities,
Hmm.
obviously lots of differences too. But yeah, so oh, sorry, that was a click on here. Um, yeah, so I wanted to set more in Canada. And I always think, oh, if I put this one in Niagara Falls, I'm going to go visit. If I put this one in Whistler, I'm going to go visit. I'll have an excuse. I never have yet. But
Yeah. That
yeah,
old story of when you live here, you don't do the touristy stuff.
right. Yeah. I mean, I
But
have physically been to both those places, but not as book research where I could write it
yes.
off. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, Alicia loves estranged couples and loves seeing them get back together. So
thanks,
yes,
Alicia.
that is lots of fun. Well, because you have such great covers and Snowbound especially, how do you approach your art fact sheet, which is the essentially the notes or inspiration that you give to the art department for them to craft your cover?
I'm probably not nearly as thorough as I should be. Um, I like when I see some of my other, fellow presents authors, I'm like, oh wow, how did they get that? That's so beautiful. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think of some that off the top. I know that there was one where one of Caitlin Cruz, the heroine's hair was spilling off the bed, and he was kind of sitting beside her, and I was just like, that's amazing. It looks so sexy, and I thought, gosh, I have to be more present and look for setups that would be
Hmm.
super exciting. And it always comes down to me being like, oh, pressed for time. Oh, she's kneeling on the bed in a green negligee or whatever. And sometimes it works out well. I just really trust the art department. I have to, that they're going
Hmm.
to find a way to make it exciting. So, and
Well,
they do.
they do. Yeah,
They
they
really
do.
do.
And yeah, they are great. Hello, Cachet. Thanks for being here. Well, you write in single title as well as category. So can you expand on the difference in writing for the different I guess publication styles? How do you approach each one, or is it different at all?
It's very different for me, and I one of the reasons I write other books besides Harlequin Presents is because it gives me a chance to. It's almost like a breather. You flex different muscles.
Hmm.
The pacing, because Harlequins are so tight and they're
Yeah.
so emotional, they're just very demanding to write, which is great. I mean, that's
Hmm.
fine, but then I can move to something else, and I can, yeah, just explore other things, and I can be. People can be very relaxed in having a beer versus putting on the tuxedo and the jewels and all
Uh-huh.
of that stuff. And I do tend to be a little bit more, I would say, casual in my writing style, I think. Whereas with Presents, yeah, I'm just trying to keep it super tight, really descriptive and intense. And you're always looking for those really deep emotions and deep point of view and the raw stuff and making it
Uh-huh.
really. Whereas the other ones, I have more lighter moments, and I like that part. So
Yeah. So getting to spend those more cozy moments, I guess, with the characters, and getting you have more length to show them being a couple, I guess, or finding their way to being a couple.
for sure, yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a so if someone were to want to pick up one of your single title books, which one do you think they should start with?
Or oh, you know what? Actually, I have a nice trilogy for with Thule called Blue Spruce Lodge, and I actually they're passion projects. I love them, um, and yeah, so I would start with On the Edge. It.
Okay.
Having said that, looking at the reviews, it's a love it or hate it. So there you
Oh.
go.
Well, that's funny that you mentioned to publish with Thule, because you mentioned Jane Porter, and so I was going to ask, have you considered writing with Thule, and you already have. So.
Yeah, yeah, I've got about a dozen books with them, and actually, I'm writing a trilogy for them right now called Raven's Cove.
Okay, well,
So
can you
yeah,
share with us a little bit about Ravens Cove?
um, well, I the tagline in my head when I started it was three men and a baby on an island. So it's three half brothers. They all have different
Uh-huh.
moms, and then their dad is just this profligate, I guess you would call him.
Uh-huh.
So he had these three sons and raised them up, and they all got lost, took off and left. And it's a remote fishing village,
Mhm.
or like a fly-in fishing camp, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And yeah, and so they all took off and did their own thing, and then he passes away right as he's about to get married to the new woman who has had his baby, and she also dies. So now they're stuck with a baby. They're like, well, what do we do with this half sister? So yeah, and those aren't coming out till 2024, unfortunately.
Well, very excited for them
Yeah,
already. That
yeah,
setup sounds fantastic.
awesome, thanks.
All right. Well, I know you said you didn't want to talk about this, but since we found ourselves here, you've had a few books turned into audiobooks. Can you tell us what the process was with that, and how it turned out, I guess.
Yeah, well, the first one was with Harlequin, and that was great. They sent me an email at one point. They're like, it's going to be an audiobook, pick a narrator, and they give you a couple of choices, and you
Okay.
listen and you go, yep, that sounds good. And so that was very painless. And then I had one other one, which escapes me at the moment. And then some foreign ones came in, which is nice. I
Oh,
have
okay.
absolutely nothing to do with that. That just happens. Really cool.
Yeah.
But I had a couple of indie published books. It's a duet. I call them The Secret Dreams. And so I went down the road of getting that one done. It's very expensive. It's very labor
Hmm.
intensive, both on the producer side and on my side,
Uh-huh.
because I have to listen to the whole thing, and I'm like, I'm not that interested in my words. I'm on to other stuff. So it was fine. I'm not saying anything was bad about it. It was just a process I didn't enjoy, and then the end result, unless you've got a nice bank of audiobooks, it's
Mhm.
really hard to build up that following. And so it hasn't been the most successful branch of my writing career, but I would have been really mad at myself if I didn't try it. So I'm glad I did that. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, at least on my library cards that I have, your audiobooks are always checked out. There's
Oh,
always a wait list for them. So
okay. Thanks.
that's, I can send that your way that there are people out there listening to them.
Awesome. Thanks.
Well, this wasn't a pre-scripted question, but it's one I love to put to Presents authors. What do you think is the most important thing or the embodiment of the Presents hero?
I think, yeah, he has to be, well, he's got to be honorable, I think. And that's a tricky one for a lot of people because when they read the presents, especially the older ones, he doesn't always come across that way immediately. Sometimes it
Yes.
takes until the end for him to
Yes.
arrive there. But yeah, I think that's the biggest part. And yeah, that's my answer. I'm sticking to it.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. And even the ones today, I've had some moments definitely where in those first few chapters and first few moments of meeting the hero, it's like, oh, I don't know if I like you, but you know what? I'm pretty sure I'm going to like you by the end of it.
That's it for sure.
Yeah. Well, so your latest book, or the latest one that I have here, Cinderella's Secret Baby, that is another secret baby. But can you share with us how you came up with that opening scene? Because it was fantastic.
Oh, good.
I was I was like sweating and nervous because once I realized what was going on, or once our heroine realized what was going on, it was just like, oh my gosh, no, 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 this is gonna be really bad.
Well, that was the pitch basically to my editor. I said, "What do you think of 4 books all set around a society wedding where the first book opens with the hero finding out he's got a secret baby with somebody else. He's at the altar. Here we go." And so then yeah, it does open it up. And these are 4 books they're basically all set in Canada. Almost all the characters are Canadian, and then they go off to different places for different
Yeah.
reasons. But yeah, so it starts out right there, and yeah, she got a baby, and her dad just barges right in.
Oh yeah, and she's it's such a swanky wedding, and she's like in yoga pants and has the baby. It's just
And then she has the letdown.
yeah.
Don't do it to her. She's doing it.
Yeah, oh, I know. Yeah, well, you have definitely mastered the be mean to your characters there. That was a tough moment. So, well, is there anything else you can tell us about this series or what we have coming up in the series?
Um, yeah, sure. So the second book, okay, so the first book, the hero finds out he's got a secret baby with somebody else. So I should point to my names up here. I've got them all listed so I can remember who's who. So Hunter and Amelia,
Mhm.
they take off and with their new baby Peyton and figure things out. And then there's poor Eden stuck at the altar. But it turns out she's always had a thing for the guy who's the best man. So
Oh,
yes, so she leaves with him kind of by accident, but then they sort out, so that their book
Mhm.
is them sorting out why they never got together in the first place. And it turns out that he has a huge feud with her brother, Micah. And Micah was standing in as father of the bride. And then Micah has been having a secret affair with the maid of honor, twin. I had to look. And then finally, all the dust is settled. Everybody's living happily ever after. But Hunter's sister,
Mhm.
Vienna, she gets together with Amelia's brother, Jasper. So that's the book I'm working on right now. And
Okay. Okay.
yeah,
Oh,
and
that's, you know, reading that book, that was all the characters I wanted to see more of, because you do feel
oh,
so
good.
bad for Eden, being left at the altar, because um, that's not something that's traditionally done at the left of the altar, is that the bride is left. I think because that, you know, I think it's just a little more palatable for some reason if a guy's left at the altar,
Yeah.
which is kind of cruel, but for some reason that's just how it goes. So, did you have any difficulty with writing Eden being the one left at the altar?
Well, that exactly was a thing that was on my mind. Yeah, I was wondering if it would be like it's going to be a tough sell that the groom has a baby with somebody else anyway, and he's gotten this far. So, I mean,
Hmm.
all of that, whenever you go to write something like that, it's just so challenging to kind of put all those pieces in place where you can make it all something that a reader is going to buy into without going, ugh.
Uh-huh.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah, it was all challenging. But I mean, it's also challenging because, like I say, she had this crush on Remy. So it's like, oh, why is she getting married? Again, you just
Uh-huh.
have to dig into those motivations and all those little balancing acts, I guess. So
Oh, well,
yeah.
I'm very excited for all the follow-up in this
Oh,
series
good.
here. So that is super exciting. Well, outside of that, can you tell us what is next for Dani Collins, either in writing or in life?
Oh gosh, I would love to go traveling. I have bitten off a little bit more than I can chew, so I have so many words to write. And my husband Doug is about to kill me because he had shoulder surgery,
Oh,
and he has nothing but time. He's like, "Let's go do something." And I'm like, "I got so many words, man, so many words." So that is a small problem.
mhm.
Probably nice to have. I'm working on that book 4, and I'm working on the Ravens Cove, and I'm starting some new stuff for Entangled, which is
Oh,
the
yeah.
Prospector's Only Prospect, which is like a gold rush in
Okay.
Colorado book, and then I have a second book for them that I've started, but that's due by the end of the year. And yeah, I'm really excited about that, and I just got revisions on that one, and they were not horrible. So I'm like, okay, whew. So
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Good. Well, Alicia loves wedding drama. Yes, it's
oh, good.
very, very dramatic and just wonderful. So the Colorado book, is that gonna technically fall into the cowboy genre?
I guess. I mean, it's called The Prospector. It's about mining. They get
Hmm.
on a horse now and again, but mostly
Yeah.
it's about being in the mining camp, which there I was like, oh, is it too gritty? I mean, they're not
Uh-huh.
beautiful places. It's such a departure
Yeah.
um, from the Harlequin Presents world. But I really love the characters. Yeah, they're just very silly and fun, and it's very light. She's a divorcee back in the day, and
Mhm.
that's so scandalous.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he's uh, sent away for a bride, and it was actually her sister that was supposed to come, but she shows up, and he's like, "Who are you? You're divorced. I'm not interested." He's got these 3 kids that he needs somebody to look after. So yeah, they're very struggling to get along, and it's good fun.
That gives me Seven Brides for Seven Brothers vibes right there. I'm
Yeah.
like, and then Millie shows up and is like, "Wait, there's 7 of you." Oh, but that's that's exciting and interesting too, because Marcella Bell and Maisie Yates as well. They are also presents authors, but they do, Western or cowboy or whatever, however you'd want to code it, as well. So interesting to see that, that the presents presents it so it's so grand and out there, modern day fairy tales, and then like the cowboy, it's so grounded and just down to earth and everything. So
Yeah.
it's fun to
But
see the range. Yeah.
and again, I think that goes back to, it gives you different rest. Like you're just using different muscles, and it allows you to be somebody else for a while and see the world in different things, in different ways. And then you go back to presents and it's exciting again.
Uh-huh.
Whereas, you can be just like, more jewels. Okay.
Well, have you ever been approached to be part of any of the editor-led series or anything like that? And would you be, if you haven't, would you be interested in doing something like that?
I want to say at least two of them. And they were great. I did a couple with Thule as well.
Oh,
I've never had a bad experience. They've always been really fun. I've always worked with great authors. I can't say um, that, yeah, I've always enjoyed it, but I wouldn't necessarily jump into it again because just basically like the pace that I work at, the way I want to do stuff, I don't want to check in with other people. That slows me
uh-huh.
down. And so I find that part frustrating.
Yeah.
And yeah, and as much as I love when they give me the ideas,
Uh-huh.
it can be tough too, right? Because now
Mhm.
you're writing to somebody else's vision, and
Yeah.
so you might not get it right. And I've never had a bad experience though, but quit while I'm ahead.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Because there's got to be a lot of back and forth, right? Especially, I guess, if you're writing not the first in the series or even the first. Yeah, because there's just all the check-in you have to do. Would this person do that?
Exactly.
Well, lastly, where can everyone follow you online?
Oh, first of all, go to my website. That's the big one, danicollins.com. You can have two ways there of signing up for newsletters. I have a news feed, which is basically like a blog,
Mhm.
but it's mostly just announcements. And then I have a newsletter that is kind of long and tells all about my silly story and the quails out in the yard and all that kind of stuff. So that one's fun. It's called Fans and Friends. So you might enjoy that. I have, and I don't love social media. I'm on it, but I've really scaled
Uh-huh.
back. Partly for mental health, but partly
Uh-huh.
just from time.
Yes.
But I'm on Facebook. I have a Facebook page. I'm on Twitter, Dani Collins Book on Twitter, and I'm on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. Pick one. I'm not on TikTok. I haven't gone there yet. So
Yeah. Well, so the editors haven't pushed you enough to go on TikTok yet.
do you know what I have? This is probably not the brightest thing to say, but I feel like my books are what I put out there to entertain people. I don't
Mhm.
want to put out videos. I don't, and
Yeah.
I'm not smart enough. I don't want to say I'm not smart enough, but I'm not, I don't offer good enough advice writing wise to start doing the writing tutorials. There are some
Oh,
people
okay.
out there that are
Mhm.
so good at that. I mean, I'll sit here and tell you what I think, but I don't think my advice is necessarily the best. So
No, that's yeah, because that's interesting because it does seem to be sort of a stepping stone of authors of starting the writing clinics and things like that. So um, good to hear the other side of it that it's just not for everyone.
yeah.
Yeah, and I totally understand on the TikTok. I've got one and I try, but I don't have my pulse on what's hot that day and how all the new formats and everything. So definitely don't blame you for not being on there. Well, Dani, thank you so much for joining me today. It was so good to get a chance to talk to you, and I just want to wish you the best on just everything you've got coming. That's you got
No, thank you.
a lot of exciting irons in the fire that I'm looking forward to.
Thank you so much. This was so fun. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, you're welcome. All right, everyone. So the next live show I'm going to be a part of is actually going to be on my friend Nicole's channel, Who Picked This Book. We're going to be talking about Lucy Monroe's Her Off Limits Prince. So join us on Wednesday for that. Oh, and Cache says such a great interview. Oh, thank you, Cache. You're always so sweet. Thanks for being here. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us live and on the comments. And thank you for watching if you're watching the replay. And until then, I will see you in the next video.